The Nintendo Switch 2 is launching June 5th, 2025, and after its April 2nd Direct, there's been a flooding of news. Prices, delayed pre-orders, what is on the game card, and what is the system capable of. So I'm going to summarize all of it so you can be well informed in time for launch. I'm Lord Niraj. Let us begin. Let's start with the price. $450 for this thing. Unless you want Mario Kart packed in, then it's $500. And if you want Mario Kart, you're going to want it packed in. Now, there was a little scare there that the price would go up after the tariffs were announced and Nintendo delayed the pre-orders. But when they announced the new pre-order date, we were set at ease. Though the accessories would see an increase. Most only a $5 increase, though a $10 increase for an extra dock. And the smaller accessories just like $1 or $2. The Switch 2 system itself managed to keep it at $450. Now there are some people complaining about that price, but it's very competitively priced. Comparing it to the Steam Deck, it's priced right between the Steam Deck's LCD and HDR OLED model, but the Switch has a larger, higher spec screen. The way the previews are going, it's sounding like it's outperforming the Steam Deck. Some are comparing it to the PS5, but I'm a little skeptical on that. So the Switch 2 console itself is a great deal. Now, let's talk about Nintendo's other pricing. Let's start with a little trivia. Do you know how many $80 titles there are in the modern gaming era? As of June 5th, 2025, 1. Now that's a flat $80. There are $80, $100 edition games, but not a flat $80 title. And it's Mario Kart. Not an innovative experience that's going to move gaming forward. It's Mario Kart. It's not a title that companies are going to take ideas from and implement them into their future releases. Well, they might take the $80 idea. And that's the problem. Now, people did speculate that GTA would be the first not $70 title, and more or less have been fine with that. But there's a difference between GTA 6 and Mario Kart. One is the highest budget piece of media ever. One is the most anticipated game ever. One is a game that is leaving gaming companies on hold with announcing their dates for their titles in fear of launching around the same time as the said title. And the other is Mario Kart. Just another Mario Kart. So why is Mario Kart $80? In the words of Nintendo's very own yes man, the president of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser, that's variable pricing. That's why Mario Kart is $80. That's very uninformative. But I have a better reason. Theory. It's over 16 gigs. Now, that's technically just my theory recycling from the Tears of the Kingdom, but it works. Nintendo Switch game cards. I like these over-disc media, just that they're more compact and durable, but they come at a cost. They're expensive, and their cost, along with limited file sizes options, has led third parties opting to utilize game keys, which are just cards that say this console is allowed to download and play this title. Although it isn't great for video game preservation, the alternative is a one-time use code in a box. Game keys allow for resale and trade of titles. Now, Nintendo, they're really good at file size compression. But, as I said, when Nintendo has to use that 32 gig card, they seem to charge a little more. Now, there's no confirmation to this, but both Tears and Mario Kart are the only Nintendo games to have a file size over 16 gigs. Smash Bros. Is now 16.6 gigs, but that's because of updates. There's only 13.7 on the card. Both have discounted digital versions. The Nintendo Switch voucher program was brought back for Tears of the Kingdom, and Mario Kart is getting bundled in with the system. And they both are $10 more than the standard price of the console's generation. We'll see what the market does with this, because ever since the price was revealed, Nintendo's live chats have been, drop the price, drop the price. But at least there's a title that I know people won't be paying an extra $10 for. That's because nobody's going to buy it, not because Nintendo accurately priced it. Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It shows you how to use a kickstand, what is 4K. It shows you how to use a mouse. If this is entertaining to you, you are way too young to be playing a Switch 2. Reggie Fils-Aimé himself, the former president of Nintendo of America, indirectly called Nintendo out on this by reposting an interview where he talked about how he had to fight Nintendo in order to get Wii Sports packed in with the Wii and a Wii remote with Wii Play. What does the current president say? That's variable pricing. Now, that comment was made for $80 Mario Kart, but the point still carries. Nintendo knew this should have been a pack-in title because this is the only game in the entire Nintendo Switch 2 Direct presentation that had to specify it cost money. Now, they did say that the Switch 2 editions cost money, but that was more of to signify that you did not have to re-buy the whole game entirely. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition games are nice. They're basically mods to the original titles that allow for enhanced frame rate, resolution, and others. Mario Party is getting an enhancement plus DLC that spotlights the new features of the Switch 2 system, camera sold separately. Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are getting enhancements with higher resolutions, improved frame rate, HDR support, and Zelda notes. The Zelda titles are also going into the Nintendo Switch Online expansion tier. The only reason I'll be even checking them out. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is getting an enhanced version plus story DLC. Metroid Prime 4 is getting mouse support and a quality 4K 60/a performance HD 120 frame rates game modes. And Pokemon ZA is getting a Switch 2 edition that you will hopefully be able to play in 60 frames instead of the 15 to 20 on Switch 1. And now it looks like an HD 3DS game instead of a native one. Okay, so we're almost to the actual new games coming to the system, but there are a few technical specs to go through. The joysticks are not Hall effects. This does not mean that they're bad. One of the main issue with the original Joy-Con stick design was that they were small. This meant the stick's dead zone would also be small, and then the slightest wear and tear would cause the stick to start drifting. The small sticks also cause the stick to have a small range of motion, so sticks on the Switch 2 simply being larger is enough to ensure they will not drift at least as easy. Do the physical releases of Nintendo Switch 2 editions come all on the card? First party releases will. It's not guaranteed for third parties, and it's also unknown if you tried to put a Switch 2 edition card into a Switch 1 if it would run the game without the enhancement or not. Lastly, what Switch 1 games will not work on the Switch 2? Well, aside from the IR games, all 13 of them, and the titles that need exact measurements of the Switch 1 and the Joy-Con, like Labo, there are a few games that just don't run right. Of my personal collection, there are 4. Everspace, Star Wars Episode 1 Racers, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered, and Another Crab's Treasure. The reason some games don't work right is because there is no Switch 1 hardware in the system. And so when Nintendo went about doing backwards compatibility, they considered an emulator, which would have been the Switch 2 pretending to be a Switch. But the developers said this ran the system to its max and it would drain the battery. So they ended up with a translation layer. This instead would allow the Switch 1 games to run like their Switch 2 games, but not all of the games work right. If you want to know which of your library won't work, just search Nintendo Switch 1, Switch 2 compatibility in Google and you will come to this page. And it has 3 PDFs. One with games with startup issues, games that are playable but have some in-game compatibility issues, and games with issues that are planned to be addressed. Now with all the news covered, let's get into the games, starting with the ones that will be there at launch. Let's get back into Mario Kart. It looks like just another Mario Kart, and by no means does it look like an $80 Mario Kart. But it does look to be evolved. They added a charge jump. That'll be how you doing the jumping on walls, grinding on rails. So now some of the shortcuts seem to require a little bit more skill to pull off. And how about that roster? From what I can tell, there's at least 145 characters and 37 carts. Yes, there's a cow. Wow. But when you get to the point of adding this stupid thing in there, I'm going to ask the questions. Where's my Geno? Where's my Starlo, my Marlo, and my Farfel? You put this thing in there, so you better have put the Running Man in there. My point being, there are a lot of throwaway characters here, and it might be a little overwhelming. And there are going to be characters that are, why did you add this one and not another? Now, a lot of these throwaway characters just do seem to be reused assets, models that are obstacles in other courses, and now they drive. And you have 25 racers on the track, so you're going to need a large roster. Oh, and the whole game's open world. Why? I don't know. There's pointless stickers to collect, some skins. There are some missions, but what effect does this open world have on the racing? And connected courses. In the Grand Prix, when you finish a race, you'll have to drive right to the next one. Hey, at least there's no loading times. And it also incorporates into their new game mode, the Knockout Tour. You race from one end of the world to the other. There are 6 checkpoints. If you are too far behind, you get cut. You know, I'm being very hard on this game, but that's really just because they are charging $80 for this. And it's going to be the first flat $80 video game, period. And it's not worth it. Now, looking at it as the $50 digital download included in the limited time bundle, it looks great. I'm going to have my fun with it. But in all honesty, if I am for whatever reason unable to get the bundle, I'm probably going to pass on this one. Street Fighter 6 is coming. It's getting new amiibo. Split Fiction is coming. That's from the creators of It Takes Two. Make sure you have someone else to play with it. Hogwarts Legacy is getting a re-released. Now, this version that was released on Switch 1 was a very compromised version. This is the uncompromised version, like on Xbox and PlayStation, plus with added mouse controls. But it is something that the two versions are different enough where they couldn't just slap on a shiny Switch 2 enhancement for. So it is a full re-release on the title. Hitman World of Assassination, Bravely Default, Flying Fairy HD Remaster, Yakuza 0 are all coming to launch. GameCube is coming to NSO expansion. More importantly, Wind Waker. Now, some are upset that it's not the remake, but to my understanding, the only real upgrade the Wii U remake had, aside from sharper visuals, is the faster sailing. Which, sure, not having that could be a little irritating, but I would rather wait through some sailing instead of for Nintendo to release the remake. Also, Soul Calibur 2 with the Link crossover is coming, and F-Zero GX, a game F-Zero fans have been clamoring for. One of those titles that people aren't really sure that people would actually play once it came over. But we'll see. And more titles will, of course, be adding later. Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4 is coming. Civilization 7 is getting a Switch 2 edition with mouse controls. Survival Kids is coming. Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I personally don't know a whole lot about this game, aside from the fact that it launched really bad, in a really bad state. But supposedly with the DLC that came a year or so ago, it's all fixed now. It's looking like it could be a very good benchmark to test the power of the Switch 2 system. Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming. I'm excited for this. I tried the original, but I don't really have patience for old RPG mechanics. But the story did intrigue me, and I know this is a remixed version of it, but I might make some OG fans upset with saying this, but it's the remix story is close enough for me. Kanzitsugami Path of the Goddess, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, Rune Factory, Guardians of Alzuma, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, Nobunaga Ambition Awakening Complete Edition, Fast Fusion, Fortnite, Ridge Racer. All of those titles are coming on launch, so there will be plenty to play. But if you weren't intrigued enough by those, there's plenty to look forward to as well. Starting with Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Odyssey 2, others are calling it. Now, I don't necessarily mind that, but I never wanted an Odyssey 2. I thought Mario did all he needed to. Now it's the monkey's turn. Ape. Everything looks great, vibrant, colorful, and the main man himself, he's very expressive, and he's wearing pants. Not at the end, though, so pants may be optional. Kirby Air Riders was teased, directed by Sakurai. That would be the director of the Smash Bros. Series, so excitement, but I don't care much for racers outside of Mario Kart, so it's going to take a lot to convince me to care for this one. But that's 2025. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Never played a Warriors game, still don't plan to, but that's coming this winter. Here's a very accessible game. This is Nintendo's innovative title, the one that implements the features and the accuracy of the system's controls. The Switch has ARMS, the Switch 2 has Drag and Drive. This looks like fun, something to just pick up and try out. Not a lot to it aside from the fancy controls, but it's fine as long as it's a $30 title. I'll pick it up and have a good time with it. If it's $60 or $70, I'll pass. So that's all the first party games. So let's get into the third, starting with Elden Ring. You know, it's starting to seem that Nintendo and FromSoft belong together. And Elden Ring is an excellent example of this. See, here's the Soulsborne formula mixed with inspiration of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And it created the winner of the 2022 Game Awards. And it was the most anticipated, hopeful game that would be coming to the system. But hey, an old game is only the beginning of a wonderful partnership. Hades 2 is officially launching on Switch 2. I haven't tried the first one yet, but it's been on my radar, and now I'm replacing it with this on my radar. Daemon X Machina Titan Score, a mech fighter that's coming October 5th, 2025. EA Sports titles are coming. They're FC and Madden series. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 that's coming summer 2025. IO Interactive has a 007 game in the works. Borderlands 4 will come out when it launches. WW2K and NBA 2K games will be coming. Enter the Gungeon was announced. It's in 3D now. Woo! And Star Seekers was announced. We were assured Hollow Knight Silksong was alive and well, but only with 6 seconds of footage and 2025 along the side of it. Also, might be a good time to mention, some of these games are coming to both Switch 1 and Switch 2, this being one of them. I have no idea if the versions are different, but, you know, if it was previously announced for Switch 1, I'm pretty sure you're safe to assume it's still coming to Switch 1. Story of the Season Grand Bazaar is getting a Switch 2 edition August 27th, 2025. Goodnight Universe 2025. 2 Point Museum 2025. Wild Hearts S July 25th, 2025. Witchbrook Holiday 25. Marvel Cosmic Invasion, that's holiday this year. Star Wars Outlaws is 2025. I wish that was coming day one so that I could get it for 50% off by Christmas, but I'll wait. Shadow Labyrinth, that's the Pac-Man Metrovania, is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition on July 18th when it launches. Raidu Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, that's June 19th. Reanimal, that's 2025. Professor Layton New World of Steam, they say 2025. We'll see. Tamagotchi Plaza is getting a Switch 2 edition June 27th, 2025. And Human Falls Flat 2, unannounced. And lastly, FromSoft, with probably the biggest announcement in the entire Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Duskbloods. A Switch 2 exclusive, a Vampire Soulsborne PvPvE with a stylizing very similar to Bloodborne. Now, the weight of this announcement comes mostly from the fact that it's a FromSoft making an exclusive for Nintendo, and it looks like Bloodborne. More than the actual game itself, but hey, the moon from Majora's Mask is in it. So, that's the Switch 2. Overall, it looks to be a very capable piece of hardware. With Cyberpunk, Street Fighter 6, and Star Wars Outlaws all coming, it makes me think, for the most part, if a company wants to put their game on the Switch 2, they can. It's powerful enough. Maybe not powerful enough for GTA 6, but everything else right now is good. I'm impressed. I mean, when they started announcing all the specs to this thing, I wasn't shocked it existed. I was shocked Nintendo was using it.